I want to start this video off by saying that we should all acknowledge the fact that whether we like Aaron Rodgers or we dislike Aaron Rodgers didn't ask for this argument. He did not put his name out there in this way. It was done by Ben Roethlisberger, and an interesting irony to this entire thing. An interesting irony to this entire hubbub. Shortly before the emergence of Tom Brady, it was Ben Roethlisberger around whom all of the hype was building, thinking that Ben Roethlisberger, who took over that Steelers team and went on an incredible run, was going to be the next greatest quarterback of all time. Tom Brady was not yet Tom Brady, and the NFL needed a new face. It ended up being Tom Brady, but in the meantime, Ben Roethlisberger looked as if he were going to be on track to be the next GOAT. After Tom Brady started to decline, after Tom Brady left the Patriots, it was Aaron Rodgers who everyone thought was on track to be the next GOAT. There were I can't tell you how much money there probably was behind pushing the idea of Aaron Rodgers. And then after all of that, it ended up being the guy in Kansas City who was also mentioned in this article on pace to be the next GOAT. In an article titled Steelers Great Ben Roethlisberger Would Take Aaron Rodgers in His Prime Over Patrick Mahomes from CBS Sports by Brad Crawford, we get the following. The Pittsburgh Steelers hope they caught lightning in a bottle with veteran quarterback signing Aaron Rodgers. In addition, franchise legend Ben Roethlisberger is anxious to watch unfold. Roethlisberger's recent comments that Rodgers' best years were more impressive than Kansas City's Chiefs star Patrick Mahomes went viral and sparked discussion around the NFL. Important to note here, right off the bat, Ben Roethlisberger is wrong. I would take Aaron in his prime over Patrick now. What does that suggest? Does that suggest that Patrick is past his prime, or does that suggest that Aaron is better in his prime than Patrick in his prime? Are we suggesting that Patrick is or is not any longer in his prime? Because you know me, guys. I've got some numbers dug up. We've got some things to look at the conclusion of this article. Roethlisberger said this week on his Footballin' with Ben Roethlisberger podcast. Not everybody has to have a podcast, guys. I think Aaron Rodgers in his prime was one of the top few to ever do it. So is Patrick Mahomes in his prime. I should say. Patrick Mahomes is just entering out of his prime. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to go down as another arguable GOAT. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes being out of his prime prior to his 30th birthday. All right, Ben. But Patrick Mahomes probably puts in much more work in the offseason than did you. And I'm not talking about bathroom stalls. Crunching the numbers, Mahomes is well on his way to exceeding Rodgers in every major statistical category, and up to this point has played in 137 fewer games, 133 total, meaning that he is less than halfway through the career that Aaron Rodgers has had before the 2025 season, including postseason starts. Mahomes already owns 3 Super Bowl titles over 8 NFL seasons, while Rodgers' only championship over his 20-year career came at the end of the 2010 campaign with the Green Bay Packers. The 2024 season was the only year of Mahomes' career as a starting quarterback where he failed to reach the Pro Bowl. Then they have this neat little graphic, which is interesting, but is incomplete. We're going to get some more numbers later. Wins, 164 for Rodgers, 106 for Mahomes. That's including postseason. That's why it's going to look different than some of the other numbers you know for these players. MVPs, 4 for Aaron Rodgers, 3 for Patrick Mahomes. Super Bowl titles, 1 for Aaron Rodgers, 3 for Patrick Mahomes. So far, with Patrick Mahomes having played about half the career that Aaron Rodgers has, looking pretty dire for Aaron Rodgers. Passing yards, 62,952 for Rodgers, 32,352 for Patrick Mahomes. Touchdowns, 503 for Rodgers, 245 for Mahomes. Rodgers is a 10-time Pro Bowl selection, led the NFL in passer rating on 4 separate occasions, and twice was the league's leader in touchdowns, 2016 and 2020. It's difficult, so chases precedence, it looks like. It's difficult to determine Rodgers' prime, considering his heightened star power at different moments of his career, including his 4,643-yard, 45-touchdown season in 2011 and his 48-touchdown explosion in 2020, when he led the NFL in completion percentage with 70.7, and several other categories. Mahomes' best came in 2018 when he eclipsed 5,000 yards passing and finished with 50 touchdowns. 4 years later, Mahomes won another Super Bowl with 41 touchdown passes and a career-best 5,250 yards through the air. Why don't you give him full credit for that season? His rushing yards accumulated to give him more yards total than any quarterback had ever produced in the history of the NFL. Give him the recognition for that record. No one talks about it. Roethlisberger's opinion resulted in a spirited response from NFL analyst and former Philadelphia Eagles star LeSean McCoy. Big Ben hates, McCoy said this week on FS1. One thing about Big Ben, you play 18 years, you have no all-pros. Not one first team, not one second team. This is just me. I don't respect players that talk about the greats a certain way, and you have nowhere near the type of success that they had. You played for 18 years, and you never was considered the best quarterback or the second best quarterback in football. Everything inside of me wants to disagree with LeSean McCoy because I don't like LeSean McCoy. I don't like this type of argument that you can only talk about the greats if you were a great. You can only say the names of the greats if you were one of the greats. Sort of this euhemerization of the greats, of the legends. I just don't see that there's any real point in that argument. But to Roethlisberger's point, Mahomes' production has trailed off a bit in the 2 seasons since his 41 touchdown output. Last season included a career worst 245.5 yards per game, despite the Chiefs finishing 15-1 over the 16 regular season starts prior to falling to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Now, one thing that I do want to acknowledge, LeSean McCoy on FS1 made it all about the rings. That was the argument he ended up making, which I understand, especially when you're talking about 2 quarterbacks who are in the throes or in the latter stages of their career. Aaron Rodgers says maybe this is his last year. That's kind of his plan. So it's not like you're talking about a third-year quarterback and trying to compare rings. Still, the guy who has half the time in the league has 3 times the number of rings. But I don't think that's fair. Not necessarily fair. Not when you're talking about how a player looks. That's really what's being compared here, or it was on FS1. I can't really speak to what Ben Roethlisberger was trying to say because I think that it sounded like he had a ham sandwich in his mouth, and probably that wasn't too long from the truth. But The idea is, from FS1 anyway, that when you were watching Aaron Rodgers in his prime, like there was a couple years where he was just nasty. When you were watching that Aaron Rodgers, it was just a different experience. That's true to an extent. Like, here's the thing. If anyone has ever had more electricity in their live wire arm than Patrick Mahomes, it was that Aaron Rodgers. It was that Aaron Rodgers. This does not a quarterback make. But I'm willing to step back off of the argument that what a quarterback is simply rings. I'm willing to take that step back. I'm willing to take the fact that what Big Ben is saying is not give me the guy with the rings. He's saying if I had to start a team with one of these two hypothetical players from different periods in the NFL, I would take Aaron Rodgers. You'd be wrong, but he'd do it. So rings aren't the best way to really compare them because that's one game, one time with one squad, and it's a team sport. But if you wanted to get something similar, something close to that argument that is perhaps a little bit more equitable, perhaps takes into account a few more things, because making it to the playoffs is a big deal for a team. Maybe not the biggest deal, not playing in the Super Bowl, but it's a big deal for a team to make the playoffs. And when you make the playoffs, not the Super Bowl, the playoffs, well, a lot of times there's teams that don't really belong there. Other times there's teams that are pretty good. And other times there's teams that are great. So if we were to compare playoff records, that would probably get us a little closer to a full picture of who a quarterback is than just the number of rings. After all, you have to go through the gambit of the entire regular NFL season, which washes out a lot of luck, which washes out a lot of advantage because players can get hurt, players can have bad games. All of these things wash out over the length of a season. So, just making it to the playoffs means pretty good things about you as a quarterback. And then you have the roulette of what team you're going to face in the playoffs. So I think that's a pretty good measurement, right? And we know who has the most wins in playoff history. It's Tom Brady. Tom Brady has two perfect seasons worth plus of wins. You could go 17-0 twice and still have to win another game to get to Tom Brady's postseason record of, pardon me for one moment here, 35-13. Tom Brady had a .729 winning percentage in the postseason. Absolute madness. Insane. 35 wins, 13 losses, .729 winning percentage. Guys, there are quarterbacks that will not get a .729 winning percentage during the regular season for their entire career. I don't think Derek Carr won 35 games over the course of multiple seasons very often in his NFL career. Do you know who has the second most wins in playoff history? I mean, Terry Bradshaw has 4 Super Bowls, right? Joe Montana considered Joe Cool the GOAT, right up until Tom Brady got more rings than him. It was Joe Montana was the answer, right? Everything at quarterback, Joe Montana. Dan Marino, one of the greats, never won a ring, but how did he do in the playoffs? He played a very long time. Who would you think is the second winningest quarterback in postseason history? All of the great. Maybe Aaron Rodgers. 20 years in the NFL. Nope, Patrick Mahomes, 17-4, an 8-10 winning percentage in the NFL, an 8-10 winning percentage in the playoffs for Patrick Mahomes. Absolute madness. An 8-10, 8 out of 10 playoff games, he's winning. That is unbelievable. Joe Montana down there at number 3 with 16. That's right. Patrick Mahomes moved into second all-time in playoff wins just this past season. Joe Montana won 16, one fewer, but lost 3 more. Number 4 is Terry Bradshaw, 14-5. Wow, wow, wooey, you're telling me that already on this list, we are down to 14 wins. The 4th winningest quarterback of all time in the playoffs is 14 wins. How long did Terry Bradshaw play? How long did Tom Brady play? And so before Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, the all-time record was Joe Montana at 16. So were it not for Tom Brady, and that I'm going to bite my tongue, were it not for Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes would be the winningest quarterback in postseason history. Well, how about one down from there? John Elway, that makes sense, right? 14-7, a 667 winning percentage in the postseason. Peyton Manning, 14-13. By the number 6 slot, you're looking at quarterbacks who are 500 in the playoffs. Peyton Manning, for what it's worth, played 27 games in the playoffs. Only won 14 of them. One spot down from that at number 7 is Big Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben won 13 playoff games, a winning percentage of .565, having Super Bowls in 2005 and 2008, a very impressive career in the postseason for Ben Roethlisberger. We have to give credit where it's due. Number 8, Bret Favre, 13-11. So we are already, Bret Favre in his entire career won 4 fewer playoff games than Patrick Mahomes. Troy Aikman at number 9 with 11. Look at those 3 Super Bowl trophies. 3 Super Bowl trophies. Let's talk to Troy when Patrick has 1/3 as many. Oh, wait. Patrick Mahomes has 6 more playoff wins with the exact same amount of losses as Troy Aikman. That's embarrassing. Number 10, Roger Staubach. 11-6 in the postseason. Then we get to Aaron Rodgers, 11-10 in the postseason. You want to talk to me about prime of the career. And you're talking about a guy who in 20 years has won 6 fewer playoff games and lost 6 more playoff games than Patrick Mahomes. And you want to talk about the prime of their career? Okay, I'll listen to you, Ben, but I don't think you're going to make any cogent points. Now, just to take things a little further, there's Elite Joe Flacco, 10-6. So by the time we get to 12, we are all the way down at 10 wins. Patrick Mahomes has 17, and he's not even 30. So here's Patrick Mahomes' career. You're looking at a quarterback who has 32,352 passing yards, 245 touchdowns, and 74 interceptions. One thing we're going to see with Aaron Rodgers does not throw interceptions. Just doesn't do it, man. Just doesn't do it. Patrick Mahomes, a QB record of 89-23. Twice, in 2018 and 2022, twice has thrown for more than 5,000 yards. Once eclipsed 50 touchdowns. Now let's look at Aaron Rodgers for a little bit. You're looking at a guy who has 62,952 passing yards, 503 touchdowns, 116 interceptions. Oh, he's been in the league for 20 years. He's thrown 116 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes already has 74. So that's a little bit skewed on the side of Aaron Rodgers. You see all of these single-digit interception seasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seasons consecutive of single-digit interceptions. Now, I'm not making this video to argue against Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers really was something incredible to watch. You see all of these seasons of single-digit interceptions, and in the words of Nick Wright, too few, right? That means he wasn't taking all of the risks in the world. And had he been, maybe he would have won a few more games. But that being said, he did all right for himself, has done all right for himself in that department, having 3 consecutive 13-3 seasons between 2019 and 2021. That is incredible. We're spoiled here in Kansas City watching Patrick Mahomes win 13, 14 games every season, 15 every once in a while. But this is not the norm. Now, a couple things worth noting here. Mahomes' fewest passing yards were 3,928 just last year. That's why everyone is up in a tizzy talking about why he is falling off the ledge, pardon me. By the way, he did that in 16 games, right? The old NFL schedule. So anything that Aaron Rodgers has ever done, we can compare it to that. The low of 39-28, because Aaron Rodgers, for the most of the seasons in his career, had only had 16 games. Rodgers has been below 3,928 yards 4 times in full seasons. So Aaron Rodgers has a few times where he did not play full seasons. But when he got close to playing a full season, 4 times, he has been under that number. Mahomes' 17-game average for his career, if we go back up here, we go back up to Mahomes' stats, the average season you're getting out of Mahomes, 17-game average is 4,911 yards. That is an average. Aaron Rodgers has never hit that number. Mahomes has played 46% of the games that Rodgers has, but won 58% of the wins that Rodgers has. There is a 12% chasm in the middle there. Now, that could fall off. Who knows what the future brings, but I don't think there is any argument to be made for Aaron Rodgers. I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan. I'm an Aaron Rodgers defendant. I even don't mind any of the weird stuff that he says and the tinfoil hats and all of that. It doesn't bother me. The way that it bothers Nick Wright for some reason, bothers Nick Wright terribly for some reason. I don't care about any of that. This is a football player. I don't want to know what he eats for breakfast or if he has a hyperbaric chamber or what his thoughts on religion and politics are. That doesn't bother me. I don't care. This is football. As far as football is concerned, Aaron Rodgers really is one of the most impressive quarterbacks of all time. He's not Patrick Mahomes. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, or Chiefs, talking about the Chiefs here. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel. So consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more.